Hello everyone. In this video, I will talk about the differences between gastroschisis and omphalocele.
Now, they are both conditions where the abdominal contents protrude out. So, the intestines, the stomach, the structures that are supposed to be inside the abdominal wall, they protrude out. But the major difference is that in gastroschisis, there is protrusion of the abdominal contents through a defect in the abdominal wall. Okay, so there's a defect in the abdominal wall over here, but in omphalocele, there is protrusion of abdominal contents through the umbilicus. So gastroschisis comes out through a defect in the abdominal wall. If you look at the abdominal wall, there will be a defect in the wall itself, and in omphalocele, they will come out through the umbilicus. So what happens during development, especially in the fourth week, is that there is a physiological umbilical hernia where the intestines come out of the umbilicus for some time while the intestines get rotated and the abdominal wall grows. So the all of the intestines come out through the umbilicus. That is called a physiological umbilical hernia. And after a while, it goes back inside the abdominal wall, gets reduced back. So if this umbilical hernia fails to reduce, that is what leads to an omphalocele. That is why the defect will be through an umbilicus in an omphalocele, and in gastroschisis it will be through the abdominal wall. Now, if you look at the relation to the umbilicus, in gastroschisis, the defect will be adjacent to the umbilicus. It will be para-umbilical, just next to the umbilicus. Whereas in omphalocele, it will be through the umbilicus. As I mentioned in the definition, this defect will be through the umbilicus. So the contents will herniate out through the umbilicus, and in gastroschisis, it will be adjacent to the umbilicus. Now, gastroschisis is not enclosed in a sac. So, if we look at the intestine and the intestinal contents, they lie openly. Whereas an omphalocele is enclosed in a sac. We can remember this by seal. Something with a seal is always covered by some sort of a covering. So, because omphalocele ends with the word seal, that's why we can remember that it is enclosed in a sac. Now, if you look at the structures involved in gastroschisis, the structures that are herniated could be the stomach, the small bowel, or the colon. These are the structures that can herniate in a gastroschisis. Whereas in omphalocele, the stomach, small bowel, and colon are involved, but apart from that, the liver, spleen, pancreas, these structures can also be involved. So, omphalocele is a bigger defect than gastroschisis. Inflammation of the intestinal structures are present in gastroschisis. So if you look at the intestine, they will be inflamed, edematous. Whereas in omphalocele, the structures will not be inflamed because they are covered in the sac. So they are protected from external attack and inflammation. And associated congenital anomalies are not seen in gastroschisis. So gastroschisis is not related to any other congenital anomalies, or they might be rare. And in omphalocele, it is very strongly associated with other genetic abnormalities, and omphalocele is seen in conditions like Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome, trisomy 13, trisomy 18, and trisomy 21.